I was incarcerated in the Arizona Department of Corrections. I've done 5 years total.
My wife.
My mom.
When it comes to abuse of power, it's really difficult to pinpoint just one situation because really the entire system is built as an abuse of power.
When she was actually in there, it kind of made me realize how bad it really is, and just the amount of money that families have to spend on their loved ones so they can eat, they can eat well, I guess you would say.
One thing that I experienced personally that for me has just kind of stuck with me forever was when I went in for the very first time. I was 19 years old and I had red hair, and they considered that an exotic color. So as a form of humiliation, what they did was they took all of us out of our cells while in receiving an admissions area of the prison and had everyone watch while they shaved my head. And as a 19-year-old girl, that was so, just for anyone it would be awful. And they were just laughing. They thought that it was the funniest thing ever. And that became kind of a common thing that happened throughout the time that I did, was watching officers do things just for a form of entertainment to them.
Just overall, upset, angry, obviously worried, because you feel like, their well-being should be taken care of, and that's not always the case. There are a lot of times where, you're afraid that something might happen to them, especially, during the COVID outbreak. I feel like that was a time where, if I didn't hear from her for a certain amount of time, your mind kind of thinks the worst. So I think that's a huge one.
Healthcare in women's prisons specifically, there's a lot more issues than what you would deal with men, just because there's different things going on. But there is kind of that common thread of just a lack of health care. There are people with really serious medical issues that can't get the medical care that they need. I have a friend who is now blind in one eye because she had a stroke and they refused to see her because they thought that she was, making it up for attention, and now she has permanent eye damage because she had an untreated stroke. And then, there's lack of care for pregnant women or postpartum. I was 9 months postpartum when I went in for my final sentence, and I was having some issues, and there was just no help whatsoever. And then from a misdiagnosis standpoint, I have arthritis, and when I went to get tested for that, they didn't test me for anything. They just told me I had lupus, and they were going to start doing things for lupus. And when I got out and saw a doctor out here, they were shocked because my symptoms didn't even match that. So it leaves you wondering how many people, are not treated for illnesses or treated for the wrong illnesses. It's dangerous and it's negligent.
Kind of shocking to hear, but it seems that a lot of times prisons don't offer basic human care, especially to women. That was kind of one that was really alarming to me, which it's sad, because that's something that women can't, they don't have control over that. So to hear that they weren't given those, basic products such as tampons or pads, that was sad to hear.
So I have a friend who has a facial defect, and she was walking around the yard one day, and she went to go get her mail from the officer, and the officer started making fun of her for her facial defect, and telling her she looked like a monster and calling her disgusting. And it was really, really insane to watch someone be treated like that, just so openly in the middle of a housing area. And even when it was brought to superiors, they just kind of laughed it off as if that was acceptable behavior, and that you're making fun of someone for a defect. It was really, really horrible. And it was really horrible for her because then her self-esteem was just shot for, the rest of the time that I knew her. The environment of prison definitely changes a person. I think even for people who serve smaller sentences, I've definitely become more reserved and more guarded, less emotional, That for me, I think, is the hardest part. Even when I came home, I was so excited to see my son, but I have gotten so good at turning everything off that it's been really a challenge to turn it back on. I've been home for 11 months and it's something that I still struggle with, where the environment changes you. It really is just more guarded because you have been so emotionally tormented for so long that you have to learn how to do that to protect yourself. As of now, there's no accountability whatsoever. So it's essentially like the wild, wild west, where officers can do whatever they want, leadership can do whatever they want, the ACI jobs can do whatever they want, and there's nobody watching them. So whether it's finances, abuse, anything that falls under that realm, they can just do whatever they want. And families have no idea what's going on in there. Lawmakers have no idea what's really going on in there. Taxpayers have no idea what's going on in there. If they have somebody who's watching them and ensuring that they are behaving correctly, it can completely change the outcomes for so many people. Because when you're living in an environment that fosters so much abuse, you're never going to be able to get a high level of rehabilitation. So it's really like a giant web that, all of these different pieces need addressed, or we're going to continue seeing high recidivism rates, deaths in the prison, missing money, and all of those things that, you hear about.
Everyone in prison deserves, basic human rights. They deserve, they deserve to be fed properly and given, products that they need. Obviously, they're in there for a reason, but they're still human beings. So they still deserve the same products that people on the outside get. Obviously, it gets to a point where people can live without certain items, but there are certain items that you can't live without. So I feel like the oversight would definitely help. Just help people live their life a little better on the inside, because it's not great as it is right now. Countless examples of when the prison system has come out and said, kind of try to deny these things, that things are happening behind closed doors. So I feel like this kind of, I guess you would say, it kind of holds them to that. So we need to make sure that these women are getting these products. We need to make sure that they're properly cared for. And obviously, if it comes out that things like this are still happening, then some changes really need to be made.
Independent oversight would help ensure that the people living, working, and contracted with the prison are all operating in a manner that is consistent with what works for taxpayers and what helps keep the people inside safe, as well as staff.
We are just one family.
We are just one family.
One family.
We are just one family.